Hello, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Right, I've got a very short amount of time, so I'll crack on. So for you, how important was the casting in this film?
Well, casting is always the center of any movie. After the script, that's the key, isn't it? I remember Stephen Frears once saying to me, once you've got a script, 95% of a director's job is casting the right actors. Then you can just sit back and relax. And then there's a lot of truth to that. I think I've got the dream cast in this film. If somebody had told me this cast a couple of years ago, I would have, fallen off my chair. Um, uh, but the key to it is Tahar, who I knew from of old. We'd worked together before. We'd remained good friends since then. I've seen him develop as an actor more than anything else, develop in his mastery of English and become one of the few actors who can really comfortably and convincingly act in a foreign language. You really believe that he's saying those lines, he's thinking those lines. I think when I look at a lot of foreign actors acting in English, they always have this slightly, they don't really understand what they wouldn't actually say that. Whereas with Dahar, you really 100% do, which is incredible. So he was the first person I cast. As soon as I had talked to Mohamedou, the real Mohamedou, and decided this is a character I want to make a film about, um, Tahar was the first person that came to my mind. Then, Jodie was kind of dream casting that you think is not going to happen because she doesn't really work anymore.
She
And
doesn't do anything, does she? No.
no, and when you're looking at in this age range, the sort of 50 plus female who um, is a great actor, who brings some star power and financial kind of muscle. There aren't that many people, and Jodie does less than any of the others. She really doesn't. She mostly sees herself as a director these days, and so I sent it to her on the off chance, I guess. And couldn't believe it. 3 days later, she called me up. This is really interesting. Let's talk. I went to see her. We talked about politics for like 4 hours. Hardly talked about the script. And then we came back, met again a couple of days later, talked more. And she obviously saw in it what I did, which was that first of all, it's an amazing true story, but that Nancy is the kind of character that she plays particularly well, which is somebody who has an exterior of granite and an interior that seems broken and vulnerable. And I think if you look back at her best performances, Clarice, this is character is almost like Clarice 30 years later. I almost feel, and so she came on board. Shailene came on board very quickly. I sent her the script. I said it's a very tiny part. She read it. She came and met me for breakfast. She said, "I don't care if you're going to give me one page. I want to do this film." And the two of them were that was a great pairing. One who's all heart and one who's this sort of tough, feisty person who doesn't want to let anyone in. And I think they had a good time. They had a great time with Tahar. And then Benedict, funnily enough, although he was actually the person who had optioned the book along with Lloyd Levin, the original producer, Benedict's always seen himself just as, the enabler. But as that part got better and better, he started to sort of make noises that, maybe I should do this. And we were just about to send it off to an American star. And Benedict said, "Don't, I want to do it." And so, that's how they all came together. Then Zach Levi came on board, very last minute. I was looking for someone to play that part. And his agent said, "I think Zach's looking to do something totally different. Let's see if he's interested." And Addy came to 2 weeks later to South Africa, hung out, so it was a very ego-free production. Everybody was there for the right reasons. Nobody was making fortunes. And it was really, for the crew and for the cast, it felt like it was a total collaboration, which is, really a lovely situation to be in.
Thank you. So for me, the Mauritanian it's by turns it can be quite grotesque. It's quite a divisive film, I think, but also by turns it's quite uplifting. How do you think the tonal shifts within the film as a whole contribute to the impact?
Well, that's a difficult question. Well, I mean, obviously I wanted to make a film first and foremost, that had a sympathetic Muslim lead. And I think that is something which, if you look at American cinema, I don't think I can think of it off the top of my head a single mainstream American movie that has a sympathetic Muslim lead. So when you do that, you know that there's a reason why people don't do that. It's because it's difficult for some people to accept. And having Tahar, who is such an appealing individual but believable at the same time, that's invaluable. But I also didn't want to make a movie which was speaking just to the liberal choir, the tiny choir of people who see a movie about a serious subject like this. I wanted to make a movie that's an entertainment, as well as being a serious political, humanistic statement, I guess. Yeah, humanistic rather than political. And I think that that's maybe a kind of movie that isn't made so much anymore. A movie which, if you look at the serious movies in Oscar contention this year, most of them wouldn't be out of place at Sundance. 5-10 years ago. They're movies which are aimed at a cinephile crowd, and my movie is, I hope, will be liked by a cinephile crowd, but it's aimed to reach people beyond that, people who wouldn't normally, as I say, be interested in this kind of subject matter. And that's obviously the aim of having a cast of this caliber and this weight. So, the tonal shifts within it, I don't quite know what you mean. I feel like it's a movie which is obviously building towards this sequence of this sequence of mistreatment, of torture, and that is going to be the weight of the whole film in those 15 minutes. And yet the reason to make the movie is because it is an inspiring and humanizing portrait of somebody. And the real Mohamedou, is like that. He is a man who's come out of this experience able to forgive, with a sense of humor, with a love for life, with actually a love for American culture, lots of things about American culture. And I think maybe people find that a little difficult to believe, that actually here's a guy who's cracking jokes, who's interested in his guards and trying to make friends with them, and things. And maybe that feels a little bit, improbable to people, but that is who Mohamedou is, and that is the reality of it. And I think that's why, for me, the film works.
I've got a lot more questions, Kevin, but I've literally got 2 minutes, which is a crying shame. I will ask you one more question, which is, again, a bit of a heavy one. To what extent do you think the film addresses the idea of human rights violations and unnecessary incarceration?
I think it addresses that in its very substance. As I said, to me, it's a film about humanizing somebody who has been othered. There is a reason why mainstream movies, not just in America, but everywhere else, don't show Muslim characters very much. And there's nobody less humanized in kind of popular culture than the Muslim man who's accused of terrorism. So I think its biggest contribution is I'm not trying to make any novel political point here. It's not that sort of movie. I'm trying to say to you, here's a person and he's a human being and he's treated like this. Is that the sort of society we want to live in? What questions does that raise? That's the heart of it.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Kevin.
Thank you.
Again, it's a big shame. I wish I had longer, but have a lovely day. Take care, and it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.